like, and then we connect it to a celebrity doing something opposite. Like, it's as simple as that. And then once that format was cracked, you just be like, okay, this celebrity opposite is this celebrity opposite is this. And then, like, I mean, I'm just giving you the most basic crude way, but obviously it was a lot more work than this. So my main thing is, like, why is this working? So then I have to go into a rabbit hole of watching it for 3 hours, then like sort of then figure out like patterns as to what is happening in each video that is working, that is making it work. Someone can have like 10 grammatical errors in their writing, but if the point there, like if the idea there is blowing my mind as to what they're writing, I really don't give like a damn about like their grammar or craft.
Did you love it when Rahul Dravid said or Shahrukh Khan in the Disney Plus Hotstar ad? Well, if you love this content, you are definitely going to love this podcast, because today we are bringing to you the man behind these ads, Devaiah Bopanna. Devaiah started his career in Ogilvy as a copywriter in 2008 before he joined AIB and rocked the internet, working alongside Tanmay Bhatt and his peers, creating some very, very fabulous content, famously like On Air with AIB, Genius of the Year with Alia Bhatt, and many, many more videos. Then he went on to start his own agency called All Things Small, where he created the famous ads we know from Cred and Disney Hotstar. Now he has ventured into Web3 and is a founding member in Super Team DAO. Devaiah is going to give us beautiful insights into what goes behind creating any viral piece, and you can understand from him what goes inside his brain when he views content. So, without further ado, let's get started with the third episode of The Growth Show. Hi Devaiah, welcome to The Growth Show. Super exciting to have you. We've honestly seen a lot of your work around, so it'll be very interesting to sort of delve deep into a lot of these themes. But first question for you is, you did engineering from one of the most reputed colleges in Karnataka. So how did you, delve into writing and content? Let us know
So
your yeah.
so basically, I grew up in Bangalore, okay, and in Bangalore, um, like there is like you have to do engineering. There is no there's no choice, right? I mean, there's an illusion of choice. Obviously, there are commerce colleges, arts colleges, writing
Right.
colleges, and all that, but it's not even parental pressure after a point. It's just like you will come across as really stupid if you don't do engineering, because your neighbors are engineers, your cousins are engineers, your like literally everyone's an engineer, right? And then so suddenly if you say like, hey, I want to like become a writer, or I want to join like some creative thing, like it's like it's like giving up on like LKG, and like and then deciding you don't want to go to kindergarten, you want to go to some other, it's that elementary in Bangalore. So I
Right.
think there was just like normal, like Bangalore things, you have to do your engineering. So that's why I got into engineering. And the other normal Bangalore thing is there's a lot of competition, right? So you do want to so you want to get into like some really good engineering colleges, because that's how you get defined as how cool you are in life. And especially like so I used to stay in Baswangudi Jayanagar. So BMS was the college that was it was a good college that was closest to my house.
Right.
And my father had told me that like if I got into BMS, I'd get a bike. Okay, I actually wanted to get into RV, and I got into RV. And the only reason I didn't pursue it is because there was no deal where I would get a bike. I'd have to use the college bus. So and also I went to the BMS college before I took up admission. And I saw that the gender ratio was pretty good. So I knew it's going to be a fun place to hang out, because otherwise, like you walk into any engineering college, mostly it's like just a lot of men, right? So and it's a little tricky territory I'm walking into right now, but like BMS had a cool crowd in that way. So I was like, yeah, so it's close to my house, the crowd is good, and I get a bike if I sort of get into this college. So the incentives were all lined up. And I just like mugged my second PU 12 standard boards. I just mugged. I didn't understand anything. I just solved like 10 years of question papers. So I mean, like, generally I'm hardworking, so I just solved 10 years of question paper, mugged the textbook inside out. And my strategy was like, see, I don't have the brains to solve engineering questions and like be very technical and cool about it, but I have a good memory. So I decided there's this exam called the CET, right? Like common entrance test, which is like, where you have to use your brains, four answers, pick one. And if you pick the wrong answer, you have like, you lose marks. There's negative marking. I don't know if it still exists now, but
No, no,
back
I
then.
don't think it's still there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I cannot do CET well. So I'll just mug. So I just mugged my way out of second PU. I just mugged the physics textbook inside out. I got like some 98 or something like that. And then my CET rank, CET scores were horrible. But earlier how they did was like they take 50% of your this one and 50% of your CET, and then they give you a rank. So my
Always.
strategy was just like mug PUC and just like nail your marks over there, and then pretty much got a decent enough CT rank to get into BMS. And yeah, that's how my engineering journey. I mean, I don't want to call it an engineering journey because there's not much of engineering. My college life started, but first year into my college, my engineering journey died because I realized like, oh no, this engineering is definitely not going to kill it for me, because I'm very bad at it also. It's not like, it's not like I walked out of engineering. I genuinely wanted to be an engineer, but I was bad at it. And I realized that I can't do this. So, I just keep saying this usually, like, so I always had an interest in writing. And, the best writing college in India is generally an engineering college. So I did not learn engineering in my engineering college, but I learned a lot of writing. So because, like, the most basic ingredient when it comes to writing is like thinking, right? Like, I mean, screw the grammar, screw the language and all that. I mean, those don't take priority for me. Thinking, thoughts, ideas, being able to look at problems in a very different way, cracking jokes. So these are the things that happen more. These things happen more in engineering colleges than actual engineering. So because also you have a lot of extremely smart people, analytical left brain smart people in one place who are disillusioned by what they're learning in the college, because everyone gets into engineering thinking, oh, you're going to be building the next Tesla, but no, you're like learning something that is 20 years too old. And then you're like, oh shit, I have to get marks, I have to mug things up, and I have to again, like, this whole drill which I thought like I don't have to do and ended in my 12th. So you have like extremely smart, analytical, free thinking minds who are like a very little disillusioned, so that sparks great conversation, ideas. And it's a lot of fun, like, to have engineering friends, because smart people, and that automatically makes you smart and makes you think better. And I think somewhere it always contributes, in writing. Like, you look at I think most of my friends who are writers who I work with now are all engineers, like, are all. It's not even like, 10% are not engineers right now. People are, everyone is an engineer. And if you look at like the industry right now, like, the biggest filmmakers, you'll be surprised, like, I think most of them are engineers. Like, I think the guy who made Dangal is like the biggest Hindi film ever. He's an engineer. TVF is all engineers. All stand-up comics, like, you're right from your Biswa, Kannan, like Ashish, Rohan, like whoever it is, Kenny, all of them are engineers. So I think engineering college is a great breeding ground for writers because of these reasons.
Fair enough.
Wow, that was a
So
really long answer.
I was no, but I think we got. But I think even then, like, how did you know that's the path? I think people go into very diverse paths from there, even when they figure out they want, they love writing or something else.
Right.
But most people, leave that as a hobby and they don't pursue it further. What made you want to pursue that further?
I think, see, this is so the reveal here is my dad is a writer too. Okay, so my dad's he's retired now, but he used to be a journalist. So I've sort of grown up on like having a writer at home and watching. Like, he used to work from home like earlier quite a bit. So I've like grown up watching him write. I used to discuss a lot of like his work with him while growing up. He would discuss a lot of his work, obviously. He So I would like I'd get about 10 newspapers at home right from when I was a kid. So I would read newspapers like front and back every day. And then I used to have my dad, so I used to ask him like a bunch of questions. And obviously my dad's also interested in writing and reading. So I got like I think like obviously that had an impact, right? And I knew this there was this kind of career that existed. I mean, the only thing was what kind of writing I'd want to do. Would I want to do advertising or would I want to do journalism? I didn't pick journalism because I saw my dad work very hard, and I was like, hey, I can make the same amount of money writing just a headline instead of writing like a 1,000 word article. So I think advertising is much easier, but I was wrong. Anyway, so essentially, I think that kind of pushed me in the writing direction as well, because I had like an exposure into this business, well before I got into it.
Fair enough. All right. So you started your career with the advertising agency Ogilvy as a copywriter, and then you joined AIB back in 2015. How was that transition for you? How did that?
Well, it was so basically I was in advertising from 2008 to 2015. So I did 7 years of advertising, and somehow like the first 4 5 years was insane. Like I just loved every minute of it. It was just like absolute joy, like that mayhem, the chaos, cracking ideas, thinking of stuff. Like it was like I had a lot of fun. But I felt that the last 2 3 years it had stopped becoming fun, in a sense that I felt the content and the mass media game was evolving way faster than most advertising agencies were able to keep up with it, right? Like social media took off in a huge way. Like Facebook took off, and like Facebook, Twitter just exploded in 2010, 11, 12, 13. And I just felt like hey, there was like a big opportunity there, that most of us in advertising were still thinking of TV films, and we were like, hey, that is like the holy grail to sort of crack. And there was I think there was a lot of content, more interesting content happening in digital, where the clients were, I think, a lot more freer because it was a lot more informal. Basically, they didn't take that whole medium seriously. So when people don't take it seriously, there's less MBA type gyan happening over there. So there is more freedom to do cooler things over there. And I realized like that quite early on, and I used to I used to write a lot on Facebook and like Twitter, like I used to. So I got into that like validation over there, where it was very easy for me to, every time I felt like I needed validation, I'd go put up a Facebook update or tweet something, and that would like get a lot of likes, and I'd feel happy for it. So much so that like I started liking that more than doing my actual advertising job. So and then I was like, hey, okay, like this is where what is driving me more. So what is happening in that sort of space? And I think the coolest people doing video in that space was AIB in India. And I was like, hey, this seems like a good place to be in. And somehow stars aligned, and I got to work over there. The transition was very difficult because it was essentially like, in advertising, you're given a box in terms of a brief, and you're said like, you think of 100 ideas, but inside this, within all these constraints. But over there, it's like suddenly there is no rules, there are no regulations, there are no like brand guidelines. It's just content, right? The only thing that matters over there is content, and how good your content is. And someone should see your content and hit on share or like that is the only criteria. There's not so much of brand guidelines and all that nonsense like ruling that world. So to transition from this, because I've done this for 7 years, like you kind of internalize how you think, right? So 7 years, and like suddenly like, hey, there are no rules, and to think of that takes some time. So it took me about, I think, a good like 6 7 8 months for me to start actually actively contributing at AIB. So first 6 8 months was just like unlearning everything I'd learned in 7 years.
Wow. So, what are some skills that one needs to succeed, say, in advertising versus digital content creation?
It completely depends, like it's a very like tastes change constantly. The audiences change constantly. Attention spans change constantly. So there is no one sort of set, what do you say, skill set that works in either places for a long period of time. So right now what I'm seeing is that a lot of startups are spending in advertising. And most of the startups are targeted at young people. So you have opportunities to talk to young people, and young people have grown up in the last few years they have grown up on the internet, and they are used to a certain kind of content and style that they have seen internationally. And also they have decreasing attention spans. So right now there is a certain kind of advertising that really works, which is sort of come in and be as interesting as you possibly can and make your point and get out. If it's going to take a little more time and too much brand yarn, this that, people tune out, because there's also a mental like ad blocker that is developed in most of our lives, right? Because we have like watched so much internet, there's skip ad button in our head. The minute we see an ad, we know, like, this is an ad, when we stop paying attention. So the key
Correct.
right now is to how to move past that skip ad blocker in your head and still kind of stick. So for this generation, I think right now what is working in advertising is be as interesting as possible, as quick as possible, as memorable as possible, in the shortest attention, whatever time frame.
I totally.
So and be more content and less very like brand following guidelines kind of thing. But having said that, is this going to last forever? Definitely not. It is going to end soon. Because writing styles change. Audience now will get bored of this style, right? So then they will evolve into something else, which I hope I knew the answer to. I'd make a lot of money. But like we'll have to figure, like, how this is going to evolve. And the whole kick in this business is trying to keep catching up to these cycles and making sure you're still good at it in every new cycle, because every new cycle you're starting from scratch, and there is already competition there because there are experts in that cycle. So that is how generally it works.
So, just wanted to add another follow up to that. So, as you mentioned, that I think people, the way we perceive content, like we watch something for a while and then after that we immediately switch to something new. So, as someone who creates content or suggests ideas, what is your view when you look at certain piece of content? Like, how do you look at content? Like, I think as a viewer, I will probably say skip something or just watch something. But how do you, in opposed to that, view a certain content when you see it online?
See, it's the curse of the job, right? Like, so I can not view content like in a very peaceful way, like how people enjoy content, because you're constantly analyzing why this is working and what is happening here. So when for me, like, watching anything is essentially somewhere homework, right? Like so I for example, I watch obviously I have to watch a lot of content to keep up with what is happening. And then, like, so say like when YouTube Shorts or like Moj or one of these guys, have taken off, and then or Reels, like, so my main thing is like, why is this working? So then I have to go into a rabbit hole of watching it for 3 hours, then like sort of then figure out like patterns as to what is happening in each video that is working, that is making it work, right? And then you try and understand, oh, it's this. It's basically like you can't hold. It's like every, like the way the videos are edited, right? Like, so now for example, even if you have someone talking to camera, like at every sentence there's a cut, either the camera moves close by or like it moves away, so that like in your mind, like essentially there is a surprise element. Even in that 20-30 seconds you have like 5 surprises. That surprise can be in terms of what the person is speaking, or it can be like, an edit, like, a cut, like where you move closer to the person, or a talk, like, something popping up. Like, you need those things. Like, if you're just speaking without that edit pattern, it will not work, because we are used to surprise now. So even in short form, you have to have ultra short surprises for that 30-second video, right? So analyzing. So yeah, like to answer your question, I have to keep doing this on a daily basis. Sometimes I'm like, okay, like for example, I was like, okay, why did Casablanca work when it came out? And I don't know, when it came out in the 40s or 50s. It's a black and white movie. So then I went and watched Casablanca, like, just to see if there are like something that's common. Like, I still love that movie. People still love that movie. This generation also still loves that movie. So what is happening in that movie? Is there a common string that is beyond, like, that transcends cinematic generation, that holds forever, right? Like, and at the end of it, it's a nicely made love story, and it has, like, generally, all the beats of a love story is still the same. So essentially, yeah, like, I just keep doing homework like this throughout, to understand basically this generation that keeps changing its mind every like 4 days.
All right. So I think moving on to writing. So how does a person know if someone is a good writer versus a bad writer? Like, how do you distinguish between the two?
I mean, like, you're asking, like, say, if I see, like, if I'm like hiring, or if I'm seeing someone, like, how do I judge other
Yes, yes.
writers?
Yeah, your take.
Okay. I mean, like, see, it's a very like, it's like, it's one X factor, the zing, like when you see someone's work, where you see, for me, it's like, one is like thought, counts way over craft. Okay. Like, if someone can have, like, 10 grammatical errors in their writing, but if the point there, like, if the idea there is blowing my mind as to what they're writing, I really don't give like a damn about, like, their grammar or craft. Similarly with film, like, if someone's written like a good film, but it's executed very badly, it could be it's not on the writer, right? So essentially, it's like ideas, and then there's an originality in voice that, sort of permeates through all writing that you see. So it's very difficult to answer this question. Like, it's more of a gut feeling. Like, when you look at, like, like, say, if, like, whatever, someone showing me their work, like, you just see consistently that they're like doing something crazy, or looking at a problem in, like, in a very different way, and saying, being very interesting while they're saying it. Obviously, there are, over a period of time, like, especially in internet writing, there are tropes that you follow, right? So, like, if you have to make something go viral, like, what you need to do, what levers you need to pull, like, how you need to write. So those are hygiene. For example, like, a lot of people, like, everyone can write something accidentally that's very good, right? Like, or accidentally it goes viral, like, you can do those things. But, like, when you're looking at someone who's really good at their craft, you kind of understand, like, oh, okay, this person knows why this went viral, and they are like, why this did well, and you see that pattern that sort of emerges in all the work that they show, because they know why something is working, and they're doing that very well. So yeah, so these two three things is generally what I see.
But primarily, from what I understood, I think there's a gut feeling that comes to you that, okay, that person has a zing, essentially.
Yeah, it's basically intuition that, like, I mean, what I think, this is, I'll sound like really old, like I'm, it's like my 15th year or whatever. So, like, you build this intuition over a period of time. When you see some piece of work, like, you kind of develop like a liking to it.
Right. But hey, you've been at it for a while, so I think we can trust that.
Yeah, like, start getting gray hair and all that now, so
That's
yeah.
okay. All
Yeah.
right. So when you start writing for any content piece, what's the framework that you usually follow?
uh so, like, I mean, see, it depends what it is, right? Like, if it's generally, like, say, it depends. Like, I treat everything very seriously. Even if I'm writing like a small LinkedIn post, or like an Instagram post, or, like, it's working on a brief for a client for an ad, like, it's the same level of dedication that I kind of give, like, because it's like work at the end of it, right? Everything is kind of content only. So yeah, so it depends what I'm doing. Like, if, for example, I'm working on, say, like an ad film or something like that, then the starting of the starting point is, what do we need to say? It sounds very, like, simple, but, like, a lot of time when a brief lands on the table, like, it's like just filled with a bunch of jargons, and like, like, so many people's points of view, that the most basic aspect of it is generally missing. So like just crystalling the whole thing down to one like problem or like one thing that we need to say, like that is like the most important thing even before you start thinking or writing or whatever. And nowadays also the products are so complicated, right? Like the offerings are getting way more complicated. It's not like for example, Grow is not just like a bank where you just go deposit money, you like get interest, right? It's a product, like you do so many things with it. So it becomes a little challenging because the product offerings are kind of new. So like again, you just go down to the absolute basic as to what you need to say. So I think that is the first step for me in any problem. And then after that, it is essentially what I do is insights around that problem. Like, it can be like, okay, if I have to say this, then what is the most interesting way to say that? Like, if the if the problem is that like, you're getting more returns on your investment, like that is the most basic thing that needs to be communicated, like more returns. So like it's just simple whatever first order thinking, like what generally happens if you get more returns. So think of like 20 different situations, some funny, some not so funny. And then sort of like then after that, like you get like a vague idea as to like, hey, okay, this is the most interesting way to say that like you get more returns on your investment. And then comes in like actually starting to write it. So that essentially takes some time because if you're writing like something like, say, if today's kind of content, you need to then apply all those rules into that idea that you have. Like it has to be interesting, it has to be short, it has to be like there has to be a surprise at least 2 3 times, you have to like land a joke in 20 seconds. So you kind of go into that aspect of it, and then is when you actually start writing.
Wow. So there's a lot that goes to it. We just watch it for those 20 seconds it is, but I'm sure there's a lot that goes to it.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So your next question. So when did AIB get its first recognition, and which piece of content do you think people started noticing at that point, and why do you think it worked? So it's a long
I
question.
think basically for me, like I before I got into AIB, like I think I just got into AIB after the roast. So obviously roast was its like big moment. But for me, like I think my favorite AIB sketch or something that I got introduced to AIB is like they'd done this sketch called Honest Flights.
Ah,
So I think that really killed it. And then I think also this thing that AIB had done with Yash Raj. Like I think they kind of spoofed, like they did a Doom spoof which Yash Raj said you can't do, and then they did a song telling Yash Raj they're no fun. So I think those two things, as an outsider for me, was like, I think that's what kind of started blowing it up, and then obviously the roast came in and like that just blew everything up.
all right. And what is your take? Like, why do you think it worked for them? Ah,
I think it was like a combination of many factors. One, um, content was still being created by uncles till then, but like there was an entire generation that had grown up on the internet by then. That this was, you can say, 2014. So
right, right.
from 2005 onwards, so imagine like someone who's 18 in 2014. In 2005 or 2006 would have been what, like 12 or something like that, right? Like yeah, like somewhere around then, 12, 13. So that whole age group, like they grew up on the internet, because by 2006 the internet had come, and probably they watched less TV and were more on YouTube.
Yes.
So till until then, like most content that was being created in India was being created by people who had watched TV. All right, so they didn't understand this whole like lingo and this whole culture like very well. So there was nobody creating for this culture. So I think AIB was one of those first, like they were one of the pioneers, because they started creating for this culture, because they were also born of this internet. So I think it was a perfect storm where there was nobody creating for this subculture of people, and they started creating for that subculture of people. And obviously internet allowed you certain freedoms. Like there was no, like at that point there was no censoring, or like there are no rules that you needed to follow. And also like filmmaking costs had come down drastically. right? Like you could shoot, you all you needed was a 5D camera and basic lighting, and you could literally shoot a film. But before that, it wasn't like that. Like if you had to shoot a film, you had to hire a big crew because digitization hadn't happened. You were still shooting on reel. I mean, like not Instagram reel, but like film roll reel.
Yeah.
So, so essentially, filmmaking was very expensive. So I think it was at a right time where they were speaking to a generation that was like a little bored of like uncles creating content for them. And then like sort of digitization of film had made like it cheaper, so you didn't have to raise a lot of money or have a big producer to make a 10-minute video. And obviously, like they were like very irreverent, bold, and interesting. So I think it's a combination of all this at the right time just like helped the company blow up.
Fair enough. All right, so your next question is what's the recipe behind any piece of content going viral? And what do you think makes people share a viral content so much?
I mean, like, this is like one. If I like, talk a lot about this, then like I think like a lot of people start doing it. No, this is just joking. But anyway, so essentially, I see there are a lot of rules. Okay, like I think at the end of it, it's like there's a bunch of things. So I don't know if I can talk about everything. But like I think just to put it like in the most simplest way, like you just need to understand like at the end of it, like human behavior, right? Like you need to know like what kind of levers move people in what kind of ways. Like like for example, I know for a fact, like if you just do like Richa, you grew up when in the 2000s or 2010s?
Yeah,
You grew up in the 20,
2000s.
yeah, yeah, so that is 2000s is your nostalgia period, right?
Right,
Like so maybe like the serials or the movies that you watched in 2000s is your nostalgia.
right,
So for you, that is your comfort place, right? Like because nostalgia is always comforting because it has happened. There's no
correct.
anxiety of what will happen. So even something that happened bad, when you were growing up you were very stressed, or like exams like sort of stressed you out, but now when you look back you always look back with comfort because that exam has happened.
Right,
So so like if you create like content around nostalgia, but just by showing you things that you grew up and all the things that have changed, like the kind of mobile phone people used back then, or like the kind of shows you watched, the kind of movies you watched, how the YouTube like homepage looked, right? Like all these things are like very comforting for you. Like so I'm basically what I'm trying to say is like nostalgia is like say one thing. Like so now if you saw a piece of content today that took you back to that time, it's really going to make you feel nice. And if it really is going to make you feel nice, you want to share it with a few friends to make them feel nice.
right, got
So
it.
so like nostalgia, there's like 10 other things that generally work on the internet to move people. Like if you're extremely polarizing, right? Like if you just talk about one side of the argument and don't talk about the other side of the argument, so people will automatically like either share it saying, hey, this is what I think, or people say this is shit, no, this is not what I think. So
Right,
then your likes and shares will increase, your comments will increase.
correct.
So there are many of these levers. So it's just like at the complete outside, it's essentially understanding how human beings work, and also like how human beings work online. But I think at the core of it all, it just comes down to like internet's made us very self-centered, right? Um, like you just feel too entitled and important all the time because everyone has an audience now. So like when everyone has an audience, everyone wants to say something, but not everyone is good enough to express themselves. So that's where content comes in. So they take content that they have, it feels it's their point of view, and because they're not good enough to express themselves but everyone has an audience, then they'll use your content to express themselves. So it's just finding out like what people want to express when and in what manner, and then just creating for kind of that niche. And it's a market that will never die because like it's literally like you go into Instagram, it's like you are seeing everyone's life like in front of you play out like this, and you're at the center of it, right? So you have the power to scroll, you have the power to like the video. So subconsciously it's like making you feel like very godly in a way that like, hey, this is like this is what the world is playing out in front of me, right? Like, and so now maybe I'm important enough where I say something, I will get a few likes. So it's just understanding basic human behavior and then kind of translating that into content and how you can sort of make content pieces out of it and giving it to these self-centered people to share. So yeah.
Wow, never thought about it like that. I think that movie came in Social Dilemma. I think that just flashed in
Right.
front of my eyes.
Right,
Yeah,
right, right. Yeah, it's a brilliant. I think it kind of sums up our times.
right, right. Got it. So now I think your Rahul Dravid piece went extremely, extremely viral, and a lot of people shared it. So how did you come up with the idea for this super famous ad?
I mean, it's obviously a team, right? Like, so we were a team of I think 4 5 writers, and so most of the work, like, it's the same 4 5 people we work together. It's like, it's obviously what I want to say. It's like a team effort. It's not
Yes,
like
of
one
course.
person's thing.
Yes.
But I think, like, it was it all happened too fast. Yeah, like I think we just had like 1 week and then we were like, okay, we cracked this kind of concept where we do the product proposition upfront and then we saw something, like, and then we connected to a celebrity doing something opposite. Like, it's as simple as that. And then
Mm-hmm.
once that format was cracked, you just be like, okay, this celebrity opposite is this celebrity opposite is this, and then, like, I mean, I'm just giving you the most basic crude way, but obviously it was a lot more work than this. uh, but yeah, so what had happened was also, like, it's the cred was catering to people like in their 30s. So for them, like, again, going back to nostalgia, their nostalgia was a bunch of these celebrities that we had used in the season before. Like, we had done these audition route with like 90 celebrities, so that also like had like struck a chord with people. So essentially it's that, right? Like, you're taking that feeling and, like, how is the most interesting way to package it to a person. So yeah, and obviously it's essentially like internet writing culture only, which we brought to television, which is like, how do we give most amount of surprises to people, right? Like, so it's like most interesting visuals which you've not seen before. Like, if you think of it like that, then you're like, okay, Dravid angry, you'll never imagine Venkatesh Prasad in a boy band. You will, like, not imagine 100 other things. So, like, how do we make that happen? But like, that is just like the first crude step. Then obviously is a lot of craft in terms of, like, say, like the comedy writing skills, or like, like writing viral video skills that also kind of come into play, which makes the idea like much better. And then we have like Ayappa, who's like, I think probably like India's best, like I think one of the best ad filmmakers in the country ever. So him, like, then he takes the material and interprets it in a certain way and shoots and then kills it. Yeah.
So how do you decide as to who you're going to cast for a particular script, or do you have a actor in mind and then you decide a script? How often does that happen?
It depends, like, it completely depends. Say, for example, we did this one campaign for Hotstar called Sivai SRK. Like, everyone's on. So that, like, you can't do it with anyone else. And the idea came from, basically the client was telling us, like, we have literally everyone, like, on Hotstar now. And then we're like, oh, okay, everyone. And then we are going through it. And we're like, hey, how can you have everyone if you don't have Shahrukh in it? And then we're like, hey, okay, then maybe that's the campaign, right? Like, everyone's on it, Shahrukh's not on it. So
Right.
so then where that comes in organically, like, if there's no Shahrukh, then the idea doesn't work. Um so so sometimes it like, it depends on the idea. Like, again, like, you go back to the problem. Like, Hotstar wanted to say, we have literally everyone on Hotstar now. We have cricket on Hotstar. We have like shows, movies, everything. How do we communicate this? So literally everyone is there. We want to communicate this. Now that is like the most basic version. And now, how do we do it in the most interesting way? One interesting way was this: like, hey, you don't have Shahrukh Khan, but you have everyone else. So then you need Shahrukh. But like, if it's say something else where you don't need, like, if there's another idea cracked for the same brief where a celebrity is not required, we don't go with a celebrity.
Hmm. Fair enough. Got
Yeah.
it. Okay, so let's take two people. One has to write a script for a comedy film, and one has to write for a thriller one.
Hmm.
So, what are some common and uncommon advice that you'd give them?
Completely wrong person to answer this because I've never written anything thriller. But like I think at the end of it, like like every like most of like say films have like a structure, right? Like they have a three-act structure. The most basic put is beginning, middle, end, and just before the end there's an all is lost moment, and then there's a triumph, and then that's how it ends. And there's a hero's journey. So I think most films, like if you look at it, is the same thing. Like you take Hangover, which is like a comedy film. Like you see, like it's the same things play out, right? Like there's okay, you set up it's a bachelor party, and then like things go wrong, and then things have to correct themselves, and just before the ending, everything is lost because they're like, oh, we don't find this guy, we have to call his wife now, and then like they find the guy on top of the terrace. So then like everything falls into place. So it's the same thing with like even a thriller, right? Like a thriller can be like if you look at like say any of these movies, right? Like what which would be a good thriller movie recently? um Shit, nobody's making good thrillers these days. uh, so like generally, like even a thriller movie, like you have to catch the murderer or someone's like going to get you, and then like just before the ending you think, oh, you're screwed, you're going to die, and then somehow you outsmart and like sort of win. So I think at the end of it, it's like the same structure. The only thing, like I can't talk, I don't know that. So the thing is, after this the next thing is the tropes, right? Like like for example, to make a joke work, there are a bunch of tropes that you kind of use to make something funny, like a fish out of water situation, or like like everyone is playing straight but one person is a little off. That sort of in that sort of makes a lot of it's a fodder to crack a lot of jokes. I'm sure there are these tropes in thriller which I don't know because I've not worked much on. But in comedy, it's like there are a bunch of tricks to make something funny, right? Like you make old people say some random young lingo shit, it sounds funny, right? So you get a 90-year-old to say, yo, what's up dog, it automatically is funny. So like you use these kind of tricks to sort of make sure things remain funny.
Got it. Fair enough. So a little bit more technical. So how much can writers earn at the initial stage? And if someone wants to become a writer, then what are the different types of roles they can pick up in the future?
I think earning, like during my time, it was very bad. Like in the initial stage, it's very bad. I don't know if things have improved. Also, it depends what kind of writing you want to do. So if you're doing like say journalism, like things are bad in the beginning, middle, and end. So like nobody makes any money there. I think at least I'm joking, but also there's some element of truth to it. Like when I say nobody makes any money there, considering the amount of their intellect, their wisdom, how much they've studied, and how smart they are, the worldview they have. When you take all that and then after 15 years you're making X amount of money, it just doesn't add up. So I think like those fields is very challenging to survive over there. But like say in advertising, I think the first advertising or content, I think the first 3 4 5 years are like you don't make much money, and then what happens is it just completely becomes um, linked to your work, like your portfolio. So if your portfolio, like in those between 5 to 10 years, if you do really good work and your portfolio is really good, then you stand to make a lot of money. It's like exponentially way higher than what you were making a few years ago. Because the thing is, it's a creative field, right? It's so when there is a client involved, the client doesn't generally have the gut feeling or like to take a chance, because they also have a job. So they will generally not take a chance on, even if someone's good but they don't have the work to show, they will not take a chance on that person. But they will pay a lot of money for someone who's like has good pieces of work in their portfolio. Maybe like they might crack the worst idea for that client, just because everything, like there is no, like nothing is guaranteed. But if your work is good, like a portfolio is good, like you get paid a lot of money, not because you are guaranteed to deliver good work, um, but just that the client the anxiety is that like, oh, okay, at least I've got the best person to work on it, so I'll pay this person a lot more. So to answer your question, first few years very bad, but you have to build like great proof of work over there, and then it's all on your portfolio. And then also, unfortunately, now it's also about networking. Like, the people, the people you hang with, those can open doors for you. Unfortunately, also it's about your personal branding online. Because I've seen so many people who are very funny on Twitter, who have a lot of followers, but like you give them a brief, they cannot work on it. uh, but Unfortunately, personal branding right now also, sort of helps you open doors to land big paying gigs. So yeah, it's like you realize as you sort of grow in this business, it's not just about your work. It's also like to, yeah, obviously people will pay you for your work, but for you to get those big opportunities, you need to have good network. You need to have like, personal branding has to be good on social media. Like, so these things matter.
Fair enough. So, what are some of the high income opportunities for a writer in India? Or are there any? And if there are, what are they?
Of course, there are like high, like, advertising after a point pays you very well if you manage to survive, and like sort of like if you manage to like sort of crack those initial years, it pays well. But like it's again like, the money that you make, like how I look at it is like it's not your CTC, it's not your annual income, it's your life income. Because like right now you might be making money, but like 2 years later, if the writing style changes, you cannot keep up, you're out of the market. There'll be someone new with a better portfolio, with better work, who will start getting all those gigs. So that is the risky part in advertising, where you're purely paid for your craft, because taste can change and your craft might not be able to keep up with the taste. So I think advertising is decent. Like again, movies and all these shows, if you manage to like really like, sort of crack it in the OTT space, there is a lot of money. Even if you are doing shit work in OTTs or TV, you get paid a lot of money, right? If you're writing a reality show, if you're writing like one of these very famous but bad shows, like you get like, there's a lot of money over there. But like if you write like a mind-blowing good show, or a movie, then you're set. Then it's a lot of money again. So at the top of every pyramid, it's a lot of money. But in OTT and TV, even in the bottom or in the mid, there is a lot of money over there. And that is why you see like a lot of advertising talent, like they get disillusioned in advertising because neither the good work is not being allowed to be made, nor are they making a lot of money. So then they're like, hey, let me just go write some, OTT show and sort of start earning over there. At least like work is coming out, and at least like I can make a lot more money over there. So yeah, I think OTT movies right now, like, digital content, TV, even if you're bad, you make a lot of money over there. But at the end of it, that kind of work also consumes you. Like, like when in your mid 30s, you'll wake up and you're like, okay, what have I done? Like, that is good. Like, what can I take back? What can I leave? Like, you're also thinking about permanence, right? Like, as a writer, like, okay, after I go, well, my work outlive me. So, and then you will be like, oh shit, like tomorrow, my like next generation is going to wake up and say, okay, my father wrote this XYZ shit. Like, so you get bored about the money, and then like you worry about your reputation. So overall, it's a very insecure career throughout. Even if you're making money, you are like sad. Even if you're not making money, you're sad. But yeah, to answer your question, advertising after a period in time, when you have good proof of work, OTT, TV, there is a lot of money over there if you are willing to work really hard and do a lot of mediocre work. And movies, of course, if you write like good movies, you get paid a lot of money.
Fair enough. So, very interesting question. Do you think AI will ever replace human writers, and or will it make their life easier?
It's 100% going to replace a lot of writers. Like, there is no question about that. I feel like textual content writing, if you are right now making money out of that, like that is the first job it's going to take. That is gone. Then in terms of videos also, like I said, like when we can identify patterns and create work out of it, that can identify patterns like at a much higher, like, frequency, and start creating work out of it. So will it will it take away jobs? Yes, it's going to take away jobs. And you had a second part to your question.
Yes, I wanted to know, will it take away jobs or will it make life easier for the
Right.
writers?
So it is going to take away jobs. It can make life easier, like say for uh, certain styles of writing. If, for example, you're using it as a writing assistant, and like so that. But also somewhere I feel like I don't know if it's a losing battle. As a romantic, I'm thinking this, that like there is going to be premium attached to, like, a human person um, who is going to be taking calls on what the AI is putting out, and eventually approving that. So I feel like only the best of the best will, like, might survive, and those people will make insane amount of money, because that is a judgment call. And in any profession you get paid a lot of money for your judgment call, more than the physical labor that you're kind of putting in, because physical labor is can be replaced and can be brought in, but judgment call is something that you develop with your intuition, gut experience, and things like that. So that is going to happen. But having said that, like, I feel there'll be something new that will come up, that will, like, where creative skills and writing skills will be required. So, and people also will evolve into doing some other things.
Fair enough, fair point. So now about what you're doing now. So what are you building at Super Team DAO? Why did you decide to switch to Web3 space? And is it as exciting as writing ads for Shahrukh Khan?
Uh, yes. So, like, the reason why I switched is because I genuinely believe that this is the future, and where, like, things will get decentralized to a certain extent, and certain things will get even tokenized. Labor will get paid like free market rates, and and the tech will enable so many cool things in the future with respect to IP and writing and ideas that the current internet is not capable of creating. I genuinely believe it's the future, and it's always, like, it's high risk, high reward. If you bet on something that will work at its most earliest stage, you will also tend to get, like, insanely rewarded for it later. um, so it's a combination of me genuinely believing that this tech is revolutionary, and it's going to disrupt a lot of industries, including media, and me wanting to be one of the first few people sort of who get into it, so that if and when, and I'm hoping it becomes mainstream and mass adoption happens, like, I will be one of the few people who will have, like, seen that journey from inception to creation to mass adoption, and that will obviously create a lot of wealth for me. And, like, is it as interesting as writing ads for Shahrukh? It is sometimes more interesting, because there are no rules here. So, and you're the first in the land, so you're even making the rules as you go by. So I can pretty much write, like, whatever I want, and as long as it's making sense, there's no, like, history to say that this won't work. So you're doing stuff and figuring out what is working and what is not working. And the whole culture in Web3 and in crypto and right now is, at least from the point of view of media and content, is memes. So it is, like, basically absolute, like, internet culture. Like, it's like people who don't live outside of the internet. So they're all, like, what do you say, they take themselves less seriously. So that makes content very interesting and a lot of fun, because the industry doesn't take itself seriously, right? Like Elon Musk is posting tweets about himself, memes about himself. So or so is like, say, like Vitalik or any of the basically big crypto people. They don't take themselves seriously because the industry doesn't take itself seriously, because the industry is essentially in a way a middle finger to like traditional establishments who have like centralized wealth creation and like centralized power, and like and have like sort of it's been going down to a select set of people, and like a lot of people don't have a shot at it. So like it's less serious and it doesn't take itself seriously. So content creation and content over there becomes very interesting, and also there are no rules because it's too new, right? Like there's no like there are no customers also right now. So
Right.
so that way it's a lot of fun.
Interesting. Would have never thought you'd say that, but for you to say that it's more interesting is awesome. And I think a lot of people watching you will now be inspired to take that journey, maybe with you, but
Hopefully, yeah. I mean,
hopefully.
like I think as writers and someone, as people who are in this creative arts business, like you have to, like I feel like take these long shots and punts on what the next trend is going to be. And
Mm,
if you are early on some of these bets, it is just disproportionate returns in terms of every way. And I'm not just talking about money, in terms of reputation, in terms of expertise, in terms of experience. You just like sort of have the opportunity to leapfrog your career. Because see, right now the easiest thing for me to do is just be in advertising. There is work coming in, there is like everything is set, I just have to keep doing what I'm doing, and that is fine. But I know like very well that like things are not going to be that, it's going to change. So
mm,
before like circumstances force me to change, I just want to like sort of bring about that change in myself. So that like and what's the worst that's going to happen? My bet is wrong. In 2 3 years I'm going to realize like, hey, this never worked out. But like at least like mentally, like I ensure every 4 5 years I remove myself from what I'm doing and restart again. Keeps you fresh also and keeps life interesting.
right, you're not bored easily,
Yeah,
which is very important. I think after
yeah,
one point, you don't look at money and everything. You just need that sanity with you.
right.
Fair enough. All right. I think this is very interesting. So, one last question for you. Anything lately? What are your three recommendations on someone who aims to build a career in the creative space in terms of the movies? In terms of movies, any three recommendations?
Oh, okay. Movies. See, honestly, like I think I okay. I'll tell you what I watched and what I liked
Huh.
more than like what is recommended, because I think anything that opens your mind and makes you have fun is like completely recommended. Um, uh, Especially in our business, right? Like, why do you watch stuff? To get inspired and to sort of yearn and do like those kind of work. I think movies wise. I think I haven't watched too many movies, um, but I think the Tender Bar, or what is it called? Is it called the Tender Bar? Like this movie directed by George Clooney very recently. Let me just check. Tender Bar. Yeah, that was very nice. Then I just saw this one documentary like the other day on essentially like it's a football documentary between like Barcelona and Real Madrid. Like there's this player called Luis Figo, and like it's like pretty much like India and Pakistan rivalry. Imagine an Indian cricketer next season playing for Pakistan, like what it creates. Like that's a massive issue. So like that situation kind of happened with these two clubs, and someone made a very good documentary out of it. The reason I really liked it is I just wanted to see how someone's going to cover this and make this interesting and stretch it over 1.5 hours to ensure it like just remains interesting. So I think I watched that. That was really nice. Um, then um, um, I mean, I watched this Tinder Swindler on Netflix. That was also phenomenal. It's a true crime docu kind of series, or I think it's a true crime docu movie.
Got it.
Tinder Swindler, that was really good. So yeah, these two three things I watched. That was interesting.
All right. Then, in terms of books, top three.
Books, I think the like most recent ones I read Dave Grohl's autobiography. He's the drummer of Nirvana, and he's the lead singer of Foo Fighters, called Storyteller. Like he's someone whose creative work and like his general work ethic really inspires me a lot. So he wrote this. memoir or autobiography. I think it's a memoir, is what you can call it. Basically, like a bunch of things about his life, and he writes also really well. There's an Instagram page called, I think, Dave Grohl Writes, or Dave Grohl True Stories, or something like that. Just look it up. Um, Writes really lyrically and from the heart. So I think that was very nice. Then I just read like this usual mainstream now finance book, Psychology of Money, which I think was very good. Like, as mainstream as it has become, I make fun of people reading that book, and finally I read that book, and I'm like, yeah, now I know why people read this book. It's like kind of, it opens up your mind. Then I'm just
Right.
reading this book right now called Fooled by Randomness by Taleb. He used to be like a trader and philosopher. He just like studied randomness, his whole life, and like he's written a bunch of books he's
Nice.
written. He's really good, but I'm currently reading this book. So podcast, I think,
Podcast. Oh my God.
yeah, so like I recommend. I mean, I realize that people have made shows out of it now. So like there's We Crashed, which is like WeWork's podcast, like what happened, called We Crashed. That was really good. Then there is I think Ronan Farrow's Catch and Kill, or what is it called? Like about like him breaking the Me Too movement in Hollywood. Like that was very good. Then there is Malcolm Gladwell's Revisionist History. Like you can just pretty much like listen to any episode and your mind will be blown. So yeah, these three have been really good. Are really good.
Thank you. It was super fun talking to you. I think a lot of great insights, a lot of, I think, different perspective on things because mostly we've seen your content as a viewer. So to see what goes behind the, on the backstage of things was super interesting. I think just opens your minds in different ways. So thank you so much. And thank you
Hey,
so much
thanks
for
so
being so
much.
candid.
Are
Yeah,
not at
and it
all.
was super fun.
Same here.
Wow. I think this video gave us a perfect encapsulated sort of experience when it comes to what goes inside the brain of someone who creates ad and such viral content. Because honestly, when you look at certain content, you are just mindlessly scrolling or skipping an ad, but there is a lot of effort that is put into it. So next time when you look at content, maybe take a tip or two from what Devaiah said and see the perspective with which he sort of creates content. And I think you will definitely be mind blown into the effort that is put into it. So definitely share this video with your friends and family or anyone who wants to get into this space. And also leave us in the comments what is some video you'd like to see next. Thank you so much for staying till the end, and I will see you again next time.